Welcome. Whoa. For anyone in the video, you just got fireworks and a whole show because I gave you a thumbs up. Welcome to episode 8 for Inclusion Starts Now, the podcast. I am here to tell you that you are witnessing the first redo of a podcast. I just went through 10 minutes of recording it the first time. This is my first time ever having an outline while trying to write a podcast, speak a podcast, do a podcast. I don't know. Um, and what I just learned is that I should have read over my outline first. Um, so we're going to try this again. Round two. Nobody knows that it's round two because you weren't here for round one. Only I was. So there's that. Okay, this is the episode that I've probably just been putting off the most because I think this is a really important discussion that I would love to have with people. But I also feel like religion is a really touchy subject. So before we get into what I want to talk about with religion and inclusion, I'm going to give you a little background with me and religion. So I grew up kind of going to church. My mom grew up going to church, but she did not like the church she went to, so she found a different church called Universal Unitarian. Um, and that was the church we went to for I don't know, maybe a couple years, and and it was fine. It was, cool. We sung some songs that I really liked, and I still remember. Uh, and so that was that. And then in high school, I did a Bible Lit class because it was, an elective that was open. And then in college, I did some world religions and Buddhism, it was like a religious clump of classes, religious studies. Because again, I needed electives to like check off for undergrad, and they were my classes that were available, and I was available during the time they had them. What I'm saying though is that I have grown up learning about a lot of different kinds of religions, and most religions have a lot of things in common. Um, to me, the point of religion, it's faith. It's believing why we're here, what we're doing, what's the point. When people die, where do they go? Why are we morally good and bad? A community. There's a lot of things in religion that have been so supportive to people. And there's been a lot of people who only feel included in their religious community. And I think that's because religious communities do try really hard, to continue to grow, but to also to help people in their community. Which, like, wouldn't that be so cool if we all just did that? So obviously I have nothing against religion, but for some reason, the more I learned about all of these different kinds of religions, I just, for some reason, it's just kind of there. We don't really practice religion at our house. My children go to a religious daycare because they are very affordable. And so now they're learning about a lot of Bible stories that I don't remember at all. But it's been fun. And, I have nothing against, people who love their faith. On board. Cool. So where I get the ick with people who are religious is if they're ever trying to push their faith on someone or telling you that what you believe is wrong. That's where I just, not a fan of that. Of course, we can talk about religion. I love learning and hearing about what you're learning. But if you are going to come over and tell me that I'm wrong for whatever I believe in, it's not going to be a fun conversation for either of us. So moving on though, this is a safe place for you. I hope that you can reflect here with me. We can have a conversation. You can comment. I'm pretty sure like anywhere this podcast is posted, I'll probably see it, but really, who knows? I might not. Best way to get a hold of me is going to Inclusion Starts Now and talking to me there, or on Instagram, or email Kayla@inclusionstartsnow.com. Okay, so I was working with a school, and one of the workers made a comment about how a lot of the staff at their school is religious. And then she said something that kind of blew my mind. Teachers who are more religious have unrealistic standards of what non compliant means. And I thought that was a really interesting observation, um, because when I think of the people I know who have left their church, or who grew up religious and are now not religious, they said that there was this transition of what was non-compliant basically to them. They didn't use that word, but that's not the point. That they basically felt this guilt if they, did something that they weren't necessarily sure was the right thing to do. Um, that they felt this like immense guilt, and they didn't know if they were going to get in trouble. They were kind of afraid of getting in trouble. And I kind of thought this was really interesting that someone else observed that the more religious teachers expected their students to, sit in their desks, listen the whole time, do their work, want to learn the entire day. And that's not realistic for really any child. And I mean, really, if I'm being totally honest, if a child is being totally obedient the entire time at school, um, I don't there I feel like there's like a reason behind that is not like, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. But there's a difference between like being respectful and then like being so obedient you're like afraid to mess up or not follow the rules or something. Uh okay. So from my experience, I grew up around a lot of religious people. Um And so, yeah, once they left the church, they just, it was this fear that they kind of had, um, of like, are they doing the right thing? Are they going to go to hell? Um, do they need to like keep confessing their sins? Like there was just like a lot of pressure for all these people. So, and I have a friend right now who's like in the process of leaving her church, and this is even a different religion than the other people that I know, trying to be super vague here. Um, and she's having a really hard time breaking some of the very strict rules that her church has enforced. And even though she's like in the process of not really wanting to be as committed, she still, very much believes in God, and she has this faith that is so important to her. But she's having a really hard time not having these rules that she grew up believing that she had to follow. Um, so, what does this have to do with inclusion in a classroom? So, I'm going to define what non-compliant it means. And non-compliant is failing to act in accordance with a wish or command. Now, this is like I Googled this definition, because, everyone can have their own definition, or everyone I'm sure has their own definition, but this is the definition online. Being non-compliant means you are failing to act in accordance with a wish or command. So, in school, that wish or command will probably be from a teacher, right? If a teacher is saying like, okay, everybody sit down, we're doing a spelling test. And if a kid, maybe just came in, they're not feeling well and their stomach's hurting and they're like moving around or whatever, they're not being compliant. If a child, uh, just got told they're invited to their friend's birthday party and they're super excited and now they're jumping up and down, like, are they not being compliant? Um, which I just think is really interesting. This word of like, and I feel like in the special education field, people love to say non-compliant. Like, that is what I feel like before there's a goal. It's like, well, we try to do math, but they're just like non-compliant. And it's like, okay, instead of saying that, how about we say like, okay, maybe they don't like math. What is something they do like, and how can we connect that to math? How can we, find a solution instead of just like SHIT on the problem? Because that doesn't do anything. So, with this whole non compliant, word. I feel like a lot of children with disabilities are labeled as non-compliant because they are expressing themselves differently. So, how do we create an active, fun learning environment for students um, with and without disabilities? So, bringing this back to possible religious upbringings, let's just reflect. So, if you are growing up a part of a church, you're a kid, your family goes to church every Sunday, very active. Um, Now, what if you are a part of a church that makes you feel guilty for not following the rules, for not sitting still during a service, for asking a question that might sound rude but is a genuine kid question? What kind of adults is that creating? Those adults are growing up and, thinking, okay, this is how kids have to act. And, I'm actually going to share a story. I am going to steer away from my little outline I created. And I'm going to share a story about a conversation me and my dad had once. So he said something to my oldest, and I was like, oh, we actually don't say that. You could, whatever. And he was like, oh, yeah, the new parenting, new parenting techniques. And I was like, yeah, and you know what? You get this a lot when you become a new parent. My parents are 30 years older than me, so they're 60 years older than my children. There's been some changes in parenting since then. They were great parents. No shade. I'm just saying things change. And so he made it, he made that comment, and I was like, okay, like why do you think parenting has changed? And his response was like, like socially just things change. And I'm like, totally. How is it like when you were brought up? And he said, oh, yeah, kids are supposed to be seen, not heard. And I'm like, cool. Did you like that parenting? And he was like, well, no, that's why I didn't parent you that way. See, they did great parenting. And I was like, exactly. You let us be kids. You like found ways for us to be involved with things. Like I felt very independent at a very young age because my parents gave me these opportunities to, you know, make my mistakes, to communicate the way I want to communicate. Um, and that was not how either of them were brought up, but they didn't like how they were brought up. And so then they gave me this better type of parenting. Now I grew up. First off, I got that parenting, which I'm very appreciative of. And then I went through school. I went through graduate school where I was learning all about child development, brain development, um, special education, disabilities. And then I worked with kids for almost a decade every day before having my own two children. So I have had a lot of work in this area. And what one of the beautiful things I've learned is saying that someone is non-compliant doesn't change anything. And I think my mindset is already like that because of a core value that my parents have instilled in me of like, let kids be kids. And how do we then, let kids be kids, but still have a fun learning environment where people can learn, people can communicate, um, and people can be loud and it's not looked at as non-compliant. So, as I was saying before, if these adults if the teachers in our classroom were once kids at a church that had these really strict rules, what do you think their view on some students with disabilities are going to look like? Maybe they are saying that kids are non-compliant because they're unrealistic rules in the classroom. Having, 20 kindergartners sit down for 20 minutes to learn to write a sentence when like maybe half the class has never even been in a school setting before. Instead of looking at it as non-compliant, which is again not helpful, how could we instead sit there and say, okay, this student could only sit for about 5 minutes. How can I give them a meaningful lesson to learn something in those 5 minutes? Um, and how maybe it'll be beneficial for everybody. What if instead of a 20-minute lesson, I do little increments of 5-minute lessons? I feel like to slap non-compliant, that word, in the face, we should just instead focus on what we should be doing to best support our students. Okay. So I guess that is my little rant. We're already at 15 minutes, so we've really already gone through. Am I saying that I want to bring down the church? No. When I first moved from San Francisco after living there for a decade to Orange County, I was living in a new city. I did not have a lot of friends who were close, and my husband was working full time. I had no job at this point. And I was sitting at the house, and I remember looking into churches because I was just like, where are people my age? Like during the daytime, where do people, like, I didn't have kids at that point. I wasn't going to parks. Like, we didn't have a dog. I had no way of meeting people in my community. And so I actually looked into churches because I was just like, I need to find people who are like morally good people looking for community, who like are my age. And that is where I thought to look. I never ended up going to church because I ended up getting a job, but I I obviously am not against churches at all. But I really want this to be a focus on education, because what are realistic expectations in the classroom, and how do we, and I'm assuming if you're listening to this is probably a lot of parents and people working in special education. How do we help shift those mindsets of teachers who might be looking at every student as like, why are they not listening? Why are they so non-compliant? How do we start focusing on the verbiage to just be more positive? And I really think it needs to start with leading by example. It really needs to start with you showing them how to keep it positive. And a great place to start is the IEP. The IEP is a legal document that we all have to sit through and listen to you read it. The case manager, everyone's reports. That is the first place that all language should be positive. It should never be, this student is not liking math. This student hits this, like, it needs to have, if any negative thing is said in there, it needs to be, I don't know, piggybacked with a comment of how we're going to support that need, that challenge during the day. And am I trying to blame the church on teachers feeling that students with disabilities are non-compliant? No. I just felt like this was a really good reflection on this person, and I just really wanted more people to hear it, because I think it's just like a really interesting concept that the people who grew up more religious and are still practicing religion had these stricter rules, and then kids weren't following them. And I think that, and then they viewed it as non-compliant, and then they're mad. Like, if we are getting mad at kids for being kids, like, that sucks, you know? I want to keep wanting to play, and I feel like I've lost some of that trying to be like, I got to do this, I got to answer this, I got to go quickly. Where that's like taking all the joy out of, living life, being fun. So let's see what I typed out here. Parenting is constantly evolving, and I think we should be trying to make changes on how we can best support children to think outside the box, respectfully push boundaries, and accommodate each other however they can, because we want everyone to want to succeed. What time is it? Oh, 19 minutes. Cool. I want to talk about respectfully pushing boundaries, because I feel like, so this was something, and I wouldn't even say was from my parents, maybe teachers and stuff growing up. I have no idea. I was very wanting to like give the right answer, and if something was told to me, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's what I have to do. There was no like me pushing boundaries. Very rarely. I mean, I'm sure there were times that I was like, I remember this one time I really wanted a Spice Girls backpack, and my mom kept saying no. It's because she got it for me for my birthday, so I messed up that gift. Anyways, but where am I going with this? But pushing boundaries. So I try really hard that like my no's aren't, this is it, mom said it, it's done. sometimes for like safety reasons, we talk it out a lot at our house. But if they're like, I want TV, and I'm like, no, we're not going to do TV right now. Let's go outside and play. And they're like, no, please, let's just do a little TV. And I'll be like, okay, let's talk about this. And then we'll sit there and talk about it. Like, okay, we haven't had TV yet today. You really want some TV. Maybe we can do one short episode of this or this, and then we're going to go outside and play. And we like work on compromising. So my no, it's, I don't want to be this, to oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess up this word. Oh my god, with the person that like leads things and no one else gets a say in things. I'm so tired. Okay, t- t- dictator. I don't want to be like some dictator in my house. This is our house. We are all a part of the house. We all keep it clean. We all respect the house, and the rules are rules that we all make. So there it is. I finally did this religion episode. This happened like months ago, and I seriously wanted to do it so badly, and I just like did not know how I was going to talk about it, but this feels like it went pretty well. So, we'll see what everyone thinks for my 2 to 5 viewers per episode. Thanks for being here. Inclusion starts with you, and I just want to help. If you need any help, please go to my Instagram at Inclusion Starts Now, or you can email me, Kayla at inclusionstartsnow.com. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you all later. Bye.